Thank you, Minister, for being here today. We've seen previously when I questioned Minister Ng about a softwood lumber agreement, whether that had been a conversation between the Prime Minister, Minister Ng, and the Biden administration. And she evaded the question. Clearly, it hadn't been discussed. What are you actually doing to fight for our forest industry?
Well, we've got $2 million in funding right now, 1.5, I think, in Sub-C, and then another $500,000 in existing funding, with another $2 million in 2021 in the main estimates. And that allows us to provide the economic analysis and the industry intelligence and provide expert advice to GAC as they sit at the negotiating table with the U.S. administration. The ultimate objective is to eliminate U.S. duties on Canadian softwood lumber and to achieve a long-term managed trade agreement. In December 2020,
I agree
we had the first
Minister.
administrative review of softwood lumber duties,
Minister, my time
lowering the duty rates.
It's only 5 minutes. So I respect that you're bringing up the softwood lumber agreement in your discussions, but I want to see a minister that's pounding his fist on the table, fighting for our forest sector and fighting for our LNG and our natural gas and fossil fuel sector in Canada. And I'm not seeing that. I read an article that talks about, it's from BBC, President Biden's side, the White House statement about the call said, this is about the Prime Minister, between him and the President. The President acknowledged Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's disappointment regarding the decision to rescind the permit, but reaffirmed that his commitment to maintain an active bilateral dialogue and to further deepen cooperation with Canada. That doesn't sound like a Prime Minister that's pounding the table fighting for our sector, our natural resource sector in Canada. I just don't see it. And then we see the announcement with Chevron. They're pulling out, which should be one of the golden eggs in our natural resource sector in Canada. And we're not seeing a pound of the fist on the table fighting for that industry. It has the potential to lower emissions around the globe, Minister, as hopefully you know. And if you're so voracious about reducing our carbon outputs, you think that you'd be defending that LNG sector around the world, pounding your fist on the table, defending us. I come from an area in northern BC where the workers actually go do the work to find the natural gas and produce it and get it to market. How are you fighting for our sector? How are you fighting for Canadians in the natural gas sector in our nation?
I am not pounding on tables. I am working closely with unions and prospective investors to get it done. And that is ultimately how I think people should gauge the results. Some may look at it and say, we're failing. I do not believe that. Things are getting constructed. Investment is coming in. But I have to say, it is difficult when we send mixed signals, right? That is very difficult. So we have to be very clear on what it is we want, which is to confront a real problem, which is climate change, by lowering emissions, but ensuring that when we do that, that our economy continues to prosper and people continue to have good jobs, right? And that there are no regions, namely Alberta, Saskatchewan, and mine, traditional oil and gas producing provinces, that are left behind in that. We will never achieve our goals by leaving Canadians behind. And I have been utterly adamant about that from this room here in St. John's, where I speak to people all over the country and all over the world.
Minister,
very clear about where we stand.
Frankly, though, with Chevron deciding to cease, and I'll read part of their statement. At this time, it's Chevron's intent to cease Chevron-funded further feasibility work for the proposed Kitimat LNG project. So if you're not pounding your fist on the table, something's not working. When we had how many projects and LNG projects along our coastline of British Columbia that could actually lower global emissions, this could be a great story for Canada. And thankfully, LNG Canada is still on track. And I know about the project. It's going relatively well, and hopefully we can get that gas to the markets in Asia where it's much needed to offset some of those higher polluting fuels. And energy. But Minister, if Chevron, such a good project like Chevron, is deciding to cease further sustainability studies, something's wrong. And you might need to start pounding your fist on the table. I would ask on behalf of all and you didn't mention British Columbia in your statement. You talked about Saskatchewan, Alberta, than your home province. BC, we have a huge natural resource sector in the province. It's very significant to our provincial bottom line and to people's meals on their tables and roofs over their heads. We're asking you to fight for our industry.
Mr. Zimmer, if you could stop now, allow him some time to answer the question, or I'm going to have to start pounding my fist on the table. Minister, can you answer briefly?
Yeah, no, Mr. Zimmer, you're absolutely right. BC, I did not leave out of on purpose. I mean, certainly in our $1.7 billion on orphan and inactive wells, BC is very much a part of that. So certainly not. And when I say pound the fist on the table, you may not see me do it. You know, in the real sense, in the metaphorical sense, I am absolutely banging my fist on the table. I told the forestry industry that very clearly in my first week as minister, that they were looking for a champion, and they have one in me.
Thank you, Minister.